Hello and welcome to FMR Finance Weekly, specifically curated for our NRI viewers. I am truly humbled by tremendous support and your positive reviews to our videos. Both my team and myself are motivated to create more informative and engaging content week over week. We really value your feedback and look forward to receiving your reviews. We are highly obliged by your encouragement. In today's video, we are going to discuss top 10 questions that every NRI have who are planning to buy property in India. We'll explore whether NRIs are allowed to buy any property, are there any restrictions, are there any approvals they require, the ancillary tax implications, can the property be leased out, can the loan be taken against purchase of such property, and many more such questions. I'll share some very important information and we'll talk about some fine nuances that all NRIs need to be aware of. I would urge you not to skip any part of this video. So stay tuned until the end of the video. Also, please subscribe to our channel as your support helps us to create more content and deliver the information you need. I am Chaitanya Gar, your tax advisor, making finance friendly.
FMR Finance Weekly. Simplify your life with our financial advice.
So let's begin our today's topic on top 10 questions boggling NRIs who are planning to buy a property in India. The first question: can NRIs purchase an immovable property in India? If yes, then who can purchase immovable property in India? The answer is definite yes. An NRI can buy any immovable property in India with the exception of a few restricted types such as agricultural land, plantation property and farmhouses. Acquisition or purchase of any property by an NRI is regulated by the FEMA guidelines and the Income Tax Act. The guidelines are subject to change with regard to the same from time to time. When general permission is available to buy immovable property in India for two categories of persons. Category number 1, non-resident Indian, that is NRI, that is a citizen of India resident outside India. Category 2, persons of Indian origin. He is an individual who at any time held Indian passport or who or either of whose father or grandfather was a citizen of India by virtue of the Constitution of India or the Citizenship Act 1955. There are 2 points that you need to be mindful of. Point number 1 is that PIOs from the specific countries are not allowed to purchase immovable property in India under general permission. The specific countries include Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, China, Iran, Nepal and Bhutan. Point number 2 is that the general permission covers only purchase of residential and commercial property and not for purchase of agricultural land, plantation property or farmhouse in India. Now the next question: how would NRI establish eligibility for purchasing property in India? Also, are there any provisions for the NRIs or PIOs to acquire agricultural land, plantation property or farmhouse in India? For an NRI to invest in Indian real estate, it is essential that he has a PIO certificate as eligibility proof. He can apply for the same in the Indian embassy or the consulate in his country where he is residing. In the absence of a valid PIO certificate, he could also use his parents' birth certificate as a proof of his origin. The answer to the other part of the question is that since general permissions is not available to PIO or NRI to acquire agricultural land, plantation property or farmhouse in India, such proposals will require specific approval of RBI. The proposals are considered in consultation with the Government of India by the RBI. Third common query which we receive: can the NRIs inherit property in India or can it be acquired by way of gift? NRIs and PIOs can freely acquire immovable property by way of gift, either from a person who is resident Indian or a non-resident Indian NRI or a person of Indian origin PIO. Fourth question is for the foreign nationals from certain restricted countries who are not allowed to purchase immovable property under general permission. What are the provisions that are available to them to purchase any property in India Or is there a way they can purchase a property in India? Well, citizens of restricted countries, irrespective of their residential status, may acquire immovable property in India only with the prior permission of the RBI, except where such persons are taking immovable property on lease for a period not exceeding 5 years. However, the FEMA regulations have now clarified that this requirement will not apply to OCIs even if they are citizens of these restricted countries. Fifth question. Can NRIs purchase any property jointly with their spouse? Spouse of an NRI or OCI is permitted to acquire property located in India other than restricted properties jointly with their spouse. So basically, a person resident outside India who is not an NRI or OCI but is the spouse of an NRI or OCI is now permitted to acquire property located in India jointly with their spouse. But one important point to take note is that to jointly acquire property under this provision, the marriage must have been registered and subsisting for a continuous period of at least 2 years prior to the acquisition, and the NRI or OCI spouse must not be otherwise prohibited from acquiring such property. Further, the consideration must be paid only through funds received in India through banking channels by way of inward remittance of funds held in any non-resident account maintained in accordance with the regulations of RBI. Dear viewers, before moving to the next question, I would like to inform you about the wide range of services that are offered by FMR specifically tailored for NRIs to meet their diverse financial requirements in India. Our expertise lies in the areas of direct taxation, beginning from income tax return filing, income tax notices, and litigation and scrutiny cases, income tax consultancy to new business incorporations, registrations, and related compliance services. You can connect with us on the numbers given below and in the description of the video. You may reach out to us via WhatsApp, email, or phone call, and we shall be glad to assist you. Now for the sixth question. This question is for the foreign citizens who came to India on a long-term visa of more than 180 days due to some work-related assignments. Are they permitted to purchase property in India? Well, they can purchase property in India, but there are not many rules and regulations they must abide with. As per FEMA regulations, a person being a citizen of Afghanistan, Bangladesh, or Pakistan belonging to minority communities in those countries such as Hindus, Sikhs, Jains, Buddhists, Parsis, and Christians who is residing in India and has been granted a long-term visa by the central government may purchase only one residential immovable property in India as dwelling unit for self-occupation and only one immovable property for self-employment. Such acquisition by a long-term visa holder resident in India is subject to the following restrictions. First, the property should not be located in and around restricted protected areas so notified by the central government or cantonment areas. 2. Such person should submit a declaration to the revenue authority of the district where the property is located, specifying the source of funds and that he or she is residing in India on a long-term visa. Third, the registration documents of the property should mention the nationality and the fact that such person is on a long-term visa. Fourth, the property of such person may be attached or confiscated in the event of his or her indulgence in anti-India activities. Fifth, a copy of documents of the purchased property shall be submitted to the Deputy Commissioner of Police, TCP, Foreigners Registration Office, FRO, Foreigners Regional Registration Office, and to the Ministry of Home Affairs, Foreigners Division. 6. Sale of the immovable property so acquired is permissible only after such person has acquired Indian citizenship. However, transfer of such immovable property before acquiring Indian citizenship requires prior approval of the DCP, FRO, FRRO concerned. Now on to the seventh question. Is the NRI need to file any documents with RBI after purchase of property? And also, is there any restrictions on the number of residential or commercial properties that can be purchased under the general permission? Does the NRI need to be present in India while purchasing the property, or can he complete the transaction with the help of power of attorney? The answer to the first question is that no documents need to be filed with the RBI after purchase. An NRI or PIO who has purchased residential or commercial property under general permission is not required to file any documents with the RBI. The answer to the second part of the question, there is no restriction whatsoever on the number of residential or commercial properties that can be purchased by an NRI. As they live outside, NRIs have an option to give POAs to their friends or relatives to complete the property purchase process in India. The POA can be general or specific about the rights of your representative that he or she can exercise. Next, on to the eighth question. What is the way for an NRI to fund the purchase of property? NRIs that want to invest in a property in India should have an NRI account in one of the authorized Indian banks. As NRI property investors are required to route all their transactions through Indian banks, it is important that they make sure that they use their NRO or NRE accounts for all inward money remittances. They are also allowed to submit post-dated checks or opt for ECS facility from their NRO, NRE or FCNR accounts. According to RBI norms, a maximum of 80% of the value of property can be funded by a financial institution. Rest has to come from the NRI's personal resources. Indian financial institutions give rupee loans, and so the same needs to be repaid in rupees only, and repayment of loan has to be done by inward remittances. In case NRI let out the property, he can use the rent to repay the loan as well. Checks issued by a relative's local account can also be used to make the loan repayments. Ninth question. Whether any TDS needs to be deducted on property purchased by NRIs in India? If yes, then what are the rates of TDS? Absolutely yes. TDS is applicable on NRIs also, so it needs to be deducted at the time of making payment by non-resident Indian too. TDS on any immovable property purchased by NRI in India was made applicable from June 1st, 2013. TDS is applicable on every immovable property other than agricultural land. TDS on property purchased by NRI has to be deducted by himself and needs to be deposited into the account of government. He has to deduct it before making payment to the seller of the property. No TDS shall be deducted on purchase of immovable property by NRI in case the consideration for the transaction is less than 50 lakh rupees. There will be two cases to define the amount of TDS to be deducted. Case 1, where seller provides his PAN number. If the seller provides his PAN number at the time of transaction, TDS shall be deducted at 1% of the purchase price provided value of property exceeds Rs 50 lakhs. Case 2, where seller does not provide his PAN number. If the seller does not provide his PAN number at the time of transaction, TDS shall be deducted at the rate of 20% on the purchased price. Now for the last question. What to do after deducting TDS? Is there any certificate that is needed? And is there any interest on delays? After deducting TDS, the deductor has to pay the same to the government within 7 days from the end of the month in which the TDS was deducted. In case of March, due date is 30th April. Online payment is to be made to the Income Tax Department through any of the authorized banks. NRI would be required to issue TDS certificate under this section 2. This certificate is issued in Form 16B within 15 days from the date of deposit of TDS, that is within 22 days from the end of the month in which the TDS was deducted. There is no need to file separate return for the TDS payment on purchase or sale of immovable property on quarterly basis. Form 26QB acts as a challan cum statement and contains all details required to be provided in TDS return, such as PAN number of both seller as well as the purchaser and other relevant details regarding the transaction. The provision of interest and penalty in case of late deduction and late payment apply to this section also. For any delay in deduction of TDS, deductor has to pay interest of 1% per month and 1.5% per month for any delay in payment of TDS. So why, dear viewers? Today we delve deep into very important questions for NRIs planning to buy property in India, which included property eligibility guidelines, restrictions on the types of property NRIs can buy in India, except for agricultural land, plantation property, and farmhouses. Other questions: how the acquisition is regulated by FIMA guidelines, and permissions granted to NRIs and PIOs. How PIOs from specific countries are not allowed to purchase property in India. Whether NRIs can inherit or acquire property by gift from residents of India, NRIs or PIOs. How citizens from restricted countries can acquire property with prior permission from RBI. Whether NRIs can jointly purchase property with their spouses. How can NRIs fund their property transaction through banking channels? For foreign citizens on a long-term visa, how can they purchase their residential property for self-occupation or for self-employment? The TDS applicability on property purchases by NRIs and the TDS rates. Thank you for watching this video. Do not forget to like, share and subscribe our YouTube channel FileMyReturn. Until next time, I'm Chetan Redder, your tax advisor, making finance friendly.
FMR Finance Weekly. Simplify your life with our financial advice.